Alright, we're going to start in lesson 12 today. You're going to want to pay close attention to the lecture today because some of this stuff will be on the final exam that we're going to have Friday morning starting at 9 o'clock. Okay? I know that's not what our usual schedule is, but I will not be here starting tomorrow, Wednesday, and I won't be back till sometime Thursday. I'll be in Jackson. Okay? So we're going to have to move the final exam to Friday morning. The exam will start at 9 o'clock. Keyword, will start at 9 o'clock. Okay? If you get here at 9:05, you can be locked out. So make sure Friday morning you set an alarm that you get here early. Because it is going to take most of you 2 hours to complete it. By the time it takes you to complete it, get it printed out, get it saved the way I do, everything, it'll be around 11:30, 11:45. Okay? So, and you know we shut the lab down at noon on Friday. Now, the reason you only get 2 hours to do the drawing is because that is basically the way an exam schedule is set up. Most of you know by taking academic courses, how long do you get to take an academic exam? 2 hours. It's set up like that with all of us. So, the drawing I give you, I had a kid last semester, or a student, not a kid, but a student, he finished it in 45 minutes. Okay? I had some, took them about an hour and 20, hour and a half, and then a lot of them finished it. It took right at 2 hours, and some didn't finish it. Okay? My advice to you, I'm going to give you one more drawing, and you're going to bring it, basically, it's going to have to be turned in when you walk in the door Friday morning. It's a very simple, quick little drawing. Okay, it's going to basically cover some of the stuff we're going to cover today. It's going to be a nice, I guess you say review, because some of it is going to be on the final that you'll have on a little drawing. How do you study for this final? The best way is to go back and redraw all the drawings you've done. Okay? Set up your settings. Start from scratch. If you need to practice, that's the only way I know to advise for you to practice. Okay? Don't get any help from anybody, because this is how it's going to work come Friday morning. You're going to walk in here. You're going to have your notes, your book, anything, handouts, D2L, whatever you've used all semester, you're allowed to use it on the final exam. Okay? The only thing is you will receive no help from a student. You will receive no help from me. Okay? If you can't pass the final, you won't pass the class. That's just how it is. If you can't pass the final, you don't really need to pass the class. Okay? Because that tells me if you can't pass this final exam, then you're not proficient enough to move on to the next level. So, that's kind of, now you will get to ask questions like, if something's not clear on the exam, because what you'll get is you'll get a paper with a written sheet that explains all the directions. It's 1 page long. And then you'll have a sheet that has the drawing part. Okay? So that's how this is all going to work. Any questions on that part? There's going to be no written part to this final exam. It's strictly a drawing. Okay? You will not be allowed your hard drive. So basically when you walk in, don't even have a hard drive out. When it comes down to time for you to save the drawing or to get ready to submit it, I will bring a hard drive to you and you will put the drawing on my hard drive. Okay? That way you can't use any templates or or anything like that. All right. I will be monitoring the final exam, so if I see you pull something offline and try to give you a heads up, I'll tell you on the spot. All right. When I say you can use online, it's just the handout. It's not take a template of a drawing you've already created and use it. All right, is there any questions about that? We will not take any more quizzes. I know there was like 2 chapters left that we were supposed to take. We won't take any of those. The quizzes are over. We're just going to lecture today, give you one more drawing, and you'll just have between now and Friday finish that. Okay, like I said, it's a very, very simple drawing. So let's start in chapter 12 in the book. It's going to be a pretty quick lecture. For the simple fact is we've already covered some of it because we jumped around. For example, starting on 12-2, we've already covered offset. Okay? Offset and copy are 2 very similar commands. You can use either or to do the same exact thing. The only difference, offset, you go ahead and set a distance and then start copying your drawing. When you use copy, you have to set the distance each time you want to make that line go to a certain distance, okay? So offset allows you to offset the same distance many times. Copy, you actually have to type in the distance each and every time. 12-4, 12-5. I think we went over properties, the properties box. It's CH spacebar on the keyboard if you don't remember. This is just where you can go in, manipulate different things as far as like if you need to change some or add stuff to like your dimension text, that kind of stuff. You can go to the properties box to do that. Okay, we're going to take everybody's computer now. Alright, that's about it in 12. We basically already covered 12, just jumping back and forth in between other chapters. Now 13 gets into stuff we haven't covered before. And I usually like you to do a drawing that covers this aspect, but we're not going to get to it. We basically ran out of time. Okay? So, I don't want to put 2 drawings on you due Friday, so I'm going to skip giving you a drawing on this aspect, but I still want to show you how to use it. Okay. On the Home tab, Modify panel, you see there is your array icon. For you keyboard people, if you type in AR spacebar, it'll bring up the array command. Now, anybody using the previous versions of AutoCAD, and it's probably from 10 back, it's actually going to be a lot easier to use array command than what I'm fixing to show you here. But the great engineers at AutoCAD thought that they needed to manipulate this and make it a little harder for some reason. Because used to, when you type array in, a box would pop up. And you would set everything you needed to set inside that box, and then hit OK, and it would do it. Now you basically have to type everything in. Okay? Then we're going to step through that process. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put me in a box just so I can show you what array does. So I'm going to use rectangle, dimensions, 2 by 2. Okay. If you look on page 13-2, right in the middle of the page, they show you 4 columns and 3 rows of squares. And they show you the 2 dimensions there. One says row spacing, one says column spacing in the book. Okay? What this is when it asks you the dimension of how far or what is your spacing, this in the book is showing you what you need to be figuring as far as your spacing. So for example, if we had a 2x2 square, which is what I just drew, and let's say in between the actual space in between the squares was 4 inches, what would I type in for the spacing? So I got a 2x2 square, I got a spacing of 4 inches in between one square and the other. By looking in the book at what they show, what would I type in for the spacing? Look in the book. We got a 2x2 square with a 4-inch spacing in between the squares. So what am I going to type in for the spacing? 6. Because, like I said, in the book it shows you that to figure the spacing, you got to not only figure the space in between the squares, but you also got to figure the width of the object. Now, so let's step through this. I'm going to do array, so I type in AR spacebar. It tells me the first thing is to do is select an object. So I select it. I right click to continue. Array has 2 different types of arrays. It has rectangular array and it has polar array. Rectangular is going to be creating basically rows and columns. Polar is basically arraying something around a circular item. Okay? So right now we're going to do polar, rectangular. Now, I've selected my objects. It says array, enter array type. Look, it says rectangular, half, or polar. Right now I said we wanted to do rectangular, so we hit R for rectangular. Now you see it says array. To edit array or, and you see there's a ton of different options down there. The way they show you in the book on page 13-2 of how they are measuring the spacing, you can change that. Okay, you can change that. What I mean, instead of, right now they're actually showing it right here as the starting point to right here. You can change it if you want from center to center if you want. But what is the purpose behind that? And why would I say that? The center from here to here is the same exact distance as from here to here. So really, you don't need to change that because they're the same exact thing. Okay? But if you wanted to, you can hit B for base point. It says select your base point. Let's say I want it to be, well, I want it to be in the centroid, but okay, right there it says centroid, so I'm just going to hit space bar. So now it's actually figuring from the middle to middle now instead of endpoint to endpoint. Or beginning point to beginning point. So that's just something you can do. You can change your base point if you want. I'm going to go back and rechange it. Okay? Now, you notice that right here it says columns and rows. So you type in C for columns, You can tell it how many you want. How many more you want to throw out there? Somebody give me a number. 3 columns. I hit 3 enter. Now I'm going to put in the number of rows. So I hit R, space bar. How many rows do we want? 4. 4 enter. Alright? It says specify the distance between rows. I want a 6-inch spacing in between my rows. What am I going to type in? 8. 6 inch for the spacing, 2 inch for the object. I'm going to type in 8. Alright, I didn't do that on my columns. S for spacing. We're going to do 5. Alright, I typed in 5 for my spacing on my columns. What is the actual space in between the columns? 3. Because it's a 2 by 2 square. So if my base point was set at the point here, it's 2 to get to here, and I put 5 in, so there's only 3 left there. Alright. Once I'm done, I got it exactly how I wanted. As you can see, they're actually they're making everything work as you put it in. It's adjusting itself as you put your numbers in. Once you're done, if you're complete, just hit enter on the keyboard, and there you go. Now, the one new thing about this is, when you array items now, look what it does. It all becomes one object. And the reason being, if you want to go in and manipulate that, and let's say you come back and you find out, oh, we don't want a spacing that much, we need to cut it down, it'll automatically adjust every one of them for you. Okay? For example, let's say this was too wide, or let's say this was too deep. If you double click, just double click any one of your arrays, you see it pops up this little quick properties bar. You see it shows your row spacing right here, number of rows, column spacing, number of columns. Let's say we wanted this at 6. Change the number, you see it changed everything. Once you're done, you just come out here and hit escape. Now, but let's say once it's arrayed, you don't want it as a block anymore. What command will I use to undo that? Explode. If you hit explode, X spacebar, or it's right here on the toolbar, home tab, modify panel, right there. Now you see, they're all back to individual blocks now that I exploded. But now if you have to manipulate it, what's going to happen? You have to adjust every one of them on your own. Like I said, the old way you used to have a box where all that you just went and typed in the box, and then it did it for you. Now you got to go through this long way. I don't too much like it. All right, so that's rectangular. What if we had something like this? We had a little circular or a little triangle that needed to go around, it needed to array in a circle And every time that the object arrayed, the triangle needs to rotate to fit that angle. Okay? So look at in the book on page 13-7. This is kind of what I'm fixing to go through. You see towards the bottom, they have two different scenarios. One, the triangle arrayed all the way around the circle, and each triangle is rotated. And on the other, the triangle rotated all around the circle, but what? They were all standing the same exact way, right? So let's go through how to do that. So I'm going to use the keyboard, AR for array. Select the object I want to array. Right click to continue. It tells you, enter your array type. It needs to be polar, so you can either click polar or type in PO spacebar. It says specify your center point. There's my center point. Now it gives you the same thing, it gives you all kinds of options. Angle between. Fill angle. Now angle between literally means if you have a specified angle that's supposed to be in between each object, then that's what you'll use. Generally we don't. Generally this is what we know. How many angles we want to be in, or how many items we want to be in there. And what's the degrees of a circle? 360. So generally you know two things. How many you want, and the angle it needs to fill. So I usually use fill angle. So we'll type in F for fill angle. 360 is already set. Now I want to pick how many items. So I'm going to hit I for items. Let's throw out 12. Hit enter. There it is. Once you're done, you like it, you hit enter again, and there it is. I like to play around with this a lot. What does that look like? Alright. Now, what if I didn't want these items to be rotated like that? What if I wanted them all to be standing straight up and down? Same thing. You can edit it by double-clicking the array. You see the quick menu pops up. It says right here, rotate items, yes. I wanted to say no. And you can see it still fills in the 360 degrees with 12 items, but they're just not rotated all the way around. Or each object's not rotated. What does that look like? Ferris wheel. Alright, so that's basically how you will create an array. Okay, if you did not want that to go 360 degrees and you only wanted it to go 180, it only did half of the circle. So, the array is pretty easy, or it used to be a lot easier. Now it's a little bit more difficult because you got to go in and type all the options. But, same thing. It keeps it all as one continuous item so that you can easily edit and manipulate what you need. Any questions on that? I want you to see what I usually give for the assignment on that. If you want to just look at it, go to 21-12. I just want to show you a scenario you would use this in. You go to 21-12 in your book. If you look at that object right there, what do you notice? What's the first thing you really notice about it? It's the same thing done multiple times, is it not? Okay, so the way you would generally draw this type of object, let's work on the semicircular rectangle, I guess you would call that right there. Okay, let's look at the top left quadrant. You would generally want to draw that little cutout. Once you get it drawn, you would use the array and put fill angle 360 degrees. How many of them do you want? 4. And it would automatically throw them in there. Bam! All 4 of those would be there. And all you had to do was draw one. Then the same thing with those little bitty notches, those little bitty rectangular notches. You would draw one of them, array it as a polar, use the center point of the circle. 1, 2, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 items in a 360 degree fill, and it would automatically put them in there for you. Then you would do your little trim and you'd be done. That object would be finished. So, if you see something like this, or you ever have to draw something like this, if you got that many objects working in a circle, remember the array command. That can help you tremendously save time. Okay? Not only that, but when you get to, let's say, structural, if you continue on as a drafting major and you get into stuff like that, and you're going to have to draw a bunch of grids with beam or columns on it, remember this command. If it's a continuous, even spacing, you can use array to copy them all without having to individually copy every single one. So just kind of put this array command in the back of your head. It really does come in handy. All right, let's move on to 14, lesson 14. Did we go over scale or stretch? I think we went over stretch. Then I'll kind of go back over it one more time, but scale, I don't think is the one we did not cover. I'm going to draw another rectangle. Let's say I want a 2 by 2. Scale. This is going to have a whole new meaning when we start intermediate CAD next week. Okay? That's kind of funny to hear. We're in principles right now. You start intermediate CAD next week. Monday next week, you will start intermediate CAD. Alright, so in intermediate, we'll be using this a lot differently than what we're fixing to show you right here. I mean, it's still the same principle, but you'll be using it for different things. But, the scale command, it is on the Home tab, Modify panel, and you can see scale right under Mirror. Or, your keyboard people, it's SC spacebar. SC spacebar. Now, all scale is, it allows you to manipulate an object to be either greater or larger or smaller than its current state. For example, I drew this square 2 by 2. What if I wanted this square to be a 6 by 6? How many times larger is that? 3 times. So, I type in SC spacebar, select my object. Once I'm done, I right click to continue, select the base point, then I said it's 3 times larger. Now watch, if I pull a distance, which I just did, DI, spacebar, it shows me right there at the bottom it is 6 by 6. 6 in the X, 6 in the Y. Alright? What if I didn't? What if I did not want that box to actually scale up? What if I wanted it to make a copy of it instead of messing up my 2x2 square? And let's say I wanted a 2x2 there and a 6x6. If you use the scale command, select your object, right click to continue with your base point. Right down here, there's an option that says copy. So I hit C for copy. Now I can type in my scale factor when we set it as 3. So you see, it made the box, it copied the box, made it 6x6, and left the 2x2 alone. Alright? What if I wanted to scale this from a 6x6 down to a 4x4? What if I wanted to come down from a 6x6 to a 2x2? Nope. You're going to have to take the size you're trying to go to and divide by the size you're currently at. So you got to take 4 divided by 6. What does that answer? Somebody give me, was it 0.5? No. It's 0.6. 0.66666, I think. Yeah, 4 divided by 6. I think it's 0.6666. Okay, so look, all I have to do is type point, hold 6 down for a couple seconds, and just hit enter. Now look, if I pull a distance on this one, I hit VI spacebar, 4 by 4. Okay? Now, there's a little bit easier way to do that. Let me show you how. I'm going to scale this back from a 4x4 to a 6x6, but instead of having to do all that math in my head, I'm going to use this option down here. First off, I'm going to use a copy because I want to keep my 4x4 box. So I'm going to hit C for copy. There's an option called reference. I'm going to use that. I'm going to hit R for reference. What's it ask me? It says specify your reference length. Your reference length is the length that is currently there. So what is this box currently at? 4. So I'm going to type 4 in there. It says now specify your new length. What do we want to go to? 6. There you are. Okay, that's a little bit easier because you don't have to figure in all the math. Okay? So that's kind of what you're going to use scale for at this current moment. Next week, when we move into intermediate, your first drawing is going to deal with scaling. Okay? When you start scaling objects, what have we been printing to right now? Everything's been 1-to-1, right? Monday, the first thing we're going to do is you're going to learn how to draw a metric drawing in CAD. A metric drawing in CAD is a lot harder to do than a metric drawing on fundamentals. Because there is a lot more settings that you have to go set up. For instance, what do you have to do in fundamentals? You got to use a different scale, right? So in CAD, you have to go set that new scale up. Which means, what does that all now change? Title block, text height, dimension standards, multi-letter styles. Everything that you started setting up once we started doing dimensions and stuff, now all has to be manipulated. Which is very simple because it's only one thing you got to do, but you just got to remember to do it. And we'll get into that next week. But right now, scale is just scale a little bit by. Okay. Stretch. It's almost like scale, except this allows you to do one way instead of doing a uniform scale. For instance, if I wanted this box to go from a 6x6 to a 6x8, I can hit S spacebar for stretch, or go to the Home tab, Modify Panel, and stretch should be right under Copy. Select the object you want to stretch. Now, when you go to do a stretch, you only cover, and you have to do a crossing window for this to work. You cannot use a window. Remember, window comes up as blue, crossing window comes up as green. You have to use a crossing window for this to work. Select only the portion, the entire portion that you want to move. Which means if I want to move that vertical line right there, I'm going to encompass the entire vertical line. Click. Once I'm done selecting what I want to select, I'm going to right click to continue. Grab the end of it. If you turn your ortho on, this helps tremendously. Move your mouse the direction you want to go. This is a 6x6. I want to go to 6x8. How far do I move it? 2 inches. There it is. That now is a 6x8. Okay, and if you don't trust me, I'll pull the dimension to show you. See, it's 8 in the X, 6 in the Y. Okay? So kind of the stretch command just allows you, if you made a mistake typing something in, it just allows you to fix it real quick without having to delete it entirely. Like if you typed in 2 instead of 3, just by accident, instead of erasing and trying to redraw it, you just stretch it over one more. Okay? Rotate. Now we went over rotate. If you wanted that rotated 15 degrees, all you do is hit rotate, which is the Home tab, Modify Panel, rotate, or RO on the keyboard. Select the object. Select your base point. I don't know, let's just say that's our base point. If you want to rotate it over 15 degrees, make it 15, hit enter, it's rotate. Okay. What if I had something like this and I wanted that triangle to be rotated along this angle? But let's say I do not know that angle. I'm just going to, I want it to rotate that much. You can hit rotate, select your object. Your base point would be right here, of course. All you have to do is just go on the line and have your nearest pop up or your midpoint or whatever. Click on it, and there you go. You see it rotated the polygon on that same angle. Okay? And I do want to show you one thing. Text can work the same way. And why I like to show you this, because you will use this in the future. Let's say I'm going to do middle center like we always do, 4125. Let's just type something. If I move this to where, notice that my insertion point, the middle center is trying to pick it, right? I'm going to click that, middle center. And let's say I can put it right here. If I rotate this text, back from that insertion point and do the same thing, just kind of put it somewhere on this line. There it is. And then you can just move it up above if you need. Okay? So rotate, you can do it either with a known angle, or you can use an angle that's already currently out there and just use the line to create it. Alright? Easy enough? Alright, the last one is the big boy on that. 15-2. I will tell you this. You're going to want to practice this command. Okay? This command will be seen again. Hatch.
In fundamental.
Huh?
In fundamental.
No, in principal. In intermediate. In every other course that is past this one. Okay? Let me go ahead and tell you right now, Hatch can be very stubborn in AutoCAD. Little word of advice. Before you hatch anything in any class, on any project, always save first. Hatch is well known to shut AutoCAD. Okay? So you might want to make a note of that. Save every time before you start hatching, especially if you've done a lot on a drawing. Okay? You will see this definitely when you get into your last semester as a sophomore. One of your first drawings you have to do in one of my classes will be a big drawing that has a lot of hatch on it. And it will shut it down and lose everything you've done in a heartbeat. So you got to make sure you save before you start hatching. Alright, so let's start talking about hatch. Home tab, draw panel. You'll see right there it's hatch. If you click the arrow, there's some other kind of stuff. You won't go into that. That is the hatch command, or keyboard people, is H spacebar. Okay? H spacebar. Now, there are two different types of hatch, or two different methods of selecting where you want to hatch. One is called, notice what it did at the top. When I tell you, or got into the hatch command, it gives you all these options up there. It's almost like the text. When you start doing multi-line text, it gives you all those options. You can see one of the ways to pick stuff is called pick points. The other is select. Listen carefully. Select only works if you're using a polygon. A polygon or a polyline, or let's rephrase it, a closed polyline. We went over polylines, I think, last week. Okay? So the only way hatch or the select method on hatch works if you're using a polygon or a closed polyline. But pick points, which is generally defaulted when you press hatch, it's just you go into a little area and you let your mouse hover in that area and it goes and puts in your hatch as long as there's boundaries all the way around it. Okay? For instance, like where I'm at right now, as you can see, it's all closed in, right? If there was a little gap somewhere right there, this would not work. It would tell you, hey, there's a gap. You can't hatch this. It has to be closed boundaries. You see, if I wanted, I can come down here, right, just in that little section right there. So, you can see how aggravating it would be to hatch all of this, right? Let me show you how. You got to click in every spot. Okay? Once you're done, you just right-click and hit enter, and there's your hatch. Notice what it did around your multi-line text. Kind of trims it out. Now, what if I wanted to perform the hatch on the same exact box, except I wanted to use the select method? You click your very outside box, but what do you notice? Is it trimming around there? For it to trim around that, once you select the outside box, then you have to come in and select the text. Okay? And what else is wrong with this? Missing that little piece right there, aren't we? So to get that little piece, you just come up here and hit pick points and select that piece. Once you're done, you can hit spacebar on the keyboard and it'll hit it for you. Okay? If you would have tried to use the select method, and you would have started here, watch what happens. Every time you pick a next box that surrounds that, it makes it think that that box has to be taken out. So you actually have to pick the outside box that encompasses everything, and then you work from there. Alright. Now, if you wanted to edit hatch, keyboard people, you would either press HE for hatch edit, HE spacebar, or you come up here to the home tab, modify panel, and you see right here, I clicked where it said modify. You see right there is edit hatch. Or the quickest way to do it, I don't do anything, is type in, clicking. I just come right here to the hatch and double click real quick. And look what pops up. That menu pops up again. Now, you see the patterns here. If you click on this arrow, it just kind of goes down through the patterns. If you click on the arrow right below it, it drops a little bit bigger box so you can see more. ANSI 31, which is what currently is there, that is considered basically as an all-purpose hatch. ANSI 31 can represent anything you want it to represent, as long as you call it out on the draw. Okay? Now, other things though, you can see if you come through here, you have brick standard, concrete, you have some kind of like shingle shapes, you have sand, there's another brick. That can kind of represent what? Grass, or that won't represent grass, but I'll show you what it does. There's earth. Now, if you're going to use this to represent earth, that is not how it's supposed to look. For instance, let me show you. If you're going to use this, you actually have to come up here to where you see angle. Click in there, and it has to be rotated on a 45-degree angle. That represents earth. Okay? Let's see. There's your grass right there. Grape, gravel, honeycomb. You see, if you just keep going through, there's all kinds of stuff. Okay? But that's all you do is you click on it, find the one you want, click it. Now, here's the key to this. Different hatches require different scales. When you're using ANSI 31, which is like I said, what we're going to use in here in principles, ANSI 31 will always stay at the number 1 scale. When you get into other things like, for example, let me show you. Concrete. Does that hatch work? No, it's too large. So you have to adjust the scale. Too large, right? I went the wrong way. So you start typing decimal numbers. 0.5 is still a little bit too large. That's a little better. Let's try a little more, a little lower. That would work pretty good right there, wouldn't it? So you can see Hatch does not have, it's not a specific formula to figure out the scale. Yeah, it's Hatch, you really got to play with it for your presentation purposes. Okay? But ANSI 31 does stay at 1. You don't adjust that. ANSI 31 stays at 1. Alright, let's say I forgot to put a circle in there. And now I'll put it in there. And I need the hatch to go away. How will we do that? Well, one way you can do it is clicking on here, just clicking on your hatch, come over here and hit remove, select the circle. Now let's try it again. Oh, I'm sorry. Hit add boundaries, A for add. That's why I wanted to show you that way anyway.
It says, to use move must hit select first.
See, it goes to show you how much I use it. Okay, so I'm supposed to hit.
It says you may select to remove objects from the boundary. No, remove will not be available unless you click on select.
Oh. Oh, there it went. Okay. So to get this to work, you hit on the hatch, you hit select, select the circle, and just enter. Okay. The way I usually do it, instead of going through all that, trim, select the circle. Huh. That's going to make it a little better. All right, do it the other way. It usually works. No, never explode a hatch. Never go there. You explode a hatch, then you gotta go through there. If you need to erase it, you gotta erase every little piece of that. Alright, there you go. I added a circle to it. And to get it to work, all I did was click on the hatch, went back up, hit select. All it's doing is reselecting another boundary is all it's doing. So I select the circle, and there you go. Okay? And that just kind of helps from having Because I can promise you, when you get some of these larger drawings we're going to be doing, like architectural, if you actually have to go in and rehatch some stuff, it is a pain in the butt. I mean a pain. And let me tell you this, let me give this a little word of advice too. If you're having trouble with the hatch, for example, and it's not going to have trouble, but let's say you were having trouble getting your hatch to work inside here. Let's say it was wanting to jump over into other spaces, which will happen. Like I said, hatch is kind of nutty in AutoCAD. You can create a P-line, a polyline, around your area. For example, I started a polyline. Polyline, try this again. See how I created a polyline around that region? Now I can use hatch, select, and just select that region, and it'll hatch only that region. Because when you start Monday, when we start an intermediate, you're going to start getting into, we won't do it Monday, but you'll start getting a lot of blocks and W blocks and stuff like that. Once you start including all that into your drawing, hatch goes berserk. It's like it can't define what's what on a block sometimes. So you're probably going to have to perform this step sometimes when you get to that method. Okay? In here, we're not going to get into how to do the gradients and all that. We're just going to do the hatch. On your layer sheet that you have for this class, there is a layer for hatch. So you'll have to make sure any kind of hatch that you put on your drawing needs to be on that layer. Okay? Now, the assignment I want you to do is on page 15-16 in the book. Like I said, it's very simple. Probably the simplest one we've done other than the first three. Okay? Very, very simple. But it's just getting you to use some of these commands, the trim, the line, the hatch, all that kind of stuff. Making you set up dimensions. You're going to have to center. You have to center this, layer it, dimension it, everything else. Anybody got their layer sheet handy, like right up top? All right, you see the line going through the middle of the big circle? You're going to put that on the section lines layer that is on this sheet. Okay, you're going to put that on the section lines layer that's on this sheet. So that line, big line going right up vertically through the middle of that will be section line. The arrowheads, those arrowheads will be an 1/8 inch wide by a 1/4 inch long. So you're just going to have to draw this. So the arrowheads are going to be an 1/8 by a 1/4. 1/4 needs to be the part that's sticking out. 1/8 by a 1/4. Yep. The point, from the point that's sticking way out back to the line should be 1/4 of an inch. And then the width of it should be 1/8. That also should be on the section lines layer. Now, how do you think they got those arrowheads solid? There is a hatch solid option. So when you go to hatch, and you click up there where they had all those different hatches, there's one called solid. It should be the very first one. Okay? Alright. This drawing is very, very simple. So this is why I said you should have this done when you walk in here Friday morning. It should be printed out, everything. If you need to, I'll be here until 3:30 Thursday evening. Run by, print it out if you have to. Okay? But most of you have AutoCAD at home because you downloaded it on your computer. If not, you're going to want to come here and work. Miss McGee will be here tomorrow. I think until 3 or 3:30. So if any day people want to come in and work tomorrow, she will be here. I won't. I'll be in Jackson. Huh? No, she will be with me in Jackson. Okay. I'll be back Thursday around 9:30 in the morning or 10. So I'll be here from that time until 3:30 or so Thursday if you want to come by and work also. Alright? And then of course Friday morning will be the final exam. You'll take the test. Everybody clear with that? I will tell you this, so I don't forget Friday morning. When you first start your drawing, go ahead and just save it to the desktop. Okay? Because that way if you're working on it and you're doing certain things and it shuts down all of a sudden for some reason, at least you had it saved on there. I don't want you to try to wait and save it when you turn it in and something goes wrong with it. Another time you want to save before doing something is plot. Please save before you plot. If you don't, let's say something happens, and right in the middle of you taking it, the servers go down here at MGCC, which happen all the time. My printer goes offline. When you go to print, it goes berserk because now it can't find a server, it can't find a printer, and bam, it shuts you down. And you lose everything that was there if you haven't saved, or it loses everything until your last save. So before you print or hatch, make sure you save. You will save straight to the desktop. And the reason I allow you to do that is because by the time you come back Monday, all these computers will reset itself and the drawing won't be there. Okay? All right, any questions? So nobody leave here today until I go grade that one drawing that I was in there working on. And you can see what you're doing wrong when you're dimensioning. Okay? If you want to work on all your drawings, that's great. If you want to finish the one I just assigned, but I would wait until I get that one drawing graded before you turn those other two in, so you can make sure that you're not getting the same thing wrong. We can, but you still got to stick around and wait for the grading. Yeah, I mean, that's fine. If we want to get them Friday, that's fine. But you'll have to turn them in when you walk in. Okay? Alright, so I'm going to work on getting that graded and
the one I was fixing to go.